But I'm gonna start right.
Hello again, everyone. It's time for Drummer Nation Live, the show where we talk all things drum and drumming with some of the best in the business. Today is no exception, as I happen to have my dear friend and fellow New Orleans homeboy, Johnny Vidacovich, with me. So sit tight, and we'll get going right
Hey,
away.
It's
Michael.
time for Drummer
Hang on a
Nation.
sec. All right, we're live with Johnny Vidacovich. How are you, Johnny?
I'm excellent, Michael. How are you?
Good. Always takes a minute to dial this stuff in, but I think we got it. We got it rolling. We got it rolling. So Johnny has been one of the most generous with his time with me. We worked together with Bosphorus Symbols and then Crescent, and then we've been done many shows together. One of the first things I ever did was called Coffee at Johnny's. I don't know if you remember it. Johnny Stanton brought me over there like 2004 or 5 or 6, somewhere in there, and it got tons of hits. And then later on we did, and that was about just the New Orleans scene. And then later on we did one where I met you at University in Virginia, and it was called Melodic Rhythm, and that thing's got like a couple 100,000 hits. So
I like that, huh?
yeah, and I appreciate it, and glad to see you again. Last time I saw you, I think, was at PASIC when you were stealing the show there.
I was having fun.
You really were, and everybody loved it too and appreciated it. So,
Yeah, I thought it was good.
yeah, now I like to talk. This turns into a couple of guys hanging pretty soon, but we'll go over some older stuff. You're born and raised in New Orleans, right?
Yep, still
And and,
here.
and how was your first? How'd you get rolling? Give us a little primer on the first teacher and early
hmm
influences and all that.
Well, I mean, growing up as a young kid, like before I was 12, I mean, all of those years, that first decade or so of your life, I was surrounded by parades and, music, I mean, in the streets, everywhere you went, windows were open. There was no air conditioning, not much air conditioning. So I mean, you got to hear. I got to hear all the different. There was a lot of immigrants in our neighborhood, in our city, and even when I was a kid, even more so. So from these windows of these houses, shotgun houses next to each other, you could just walk down and you could hear four different types of ethnic music, everything from well, starting in my end of the block, from Italian to Spanish and I mean Irish, and I mean it just went on and on. Then we all met at the gas station, and we you could beat on drums and hoods of cars there. So, and then you go to a parade and you're influenced and you feel the drums. So I was feeling that percussive vibration in the air all the time. When the parades would happen, when I was really young, my uncle would take me down early before the parade started, so I could go near the bands, getting assembling in line and hanging out, and they would be beating on drums. So I got to get up close and feel that impact of, and so I was very attracted to that as a kid. Then okay, then when it came time, I had some sticks, got in a band, and eventually my mom got me a little drum, and I
Hmm.
begged her and begged her and begged. I want a set of drums, and you know, tough times are tough. Just me and my mom and my grandma and grandpa and stuff like that. Yeah, but she did. She got me some drums, and I was lucky. I had a great teacher named Charlie Sewer. Charlie Sewer was my first and only drum teacher, and he was the best. Charlie Sewer is the best. He's actually a he's a doctor in literature, in English and literature and stuff like that. But he's also a great bop drummer, and he totally gave me the tools and equipment in the right, I mean, tools and taught me the right stuff to be able to get through and learn. And make gigs and play drums and in bands
And
and taught me.
let me jump in here. Isn't that something? Because Charlie Sewer and his brother Donald grew up with my mother.
Really?
Yeah, they were best friends as children.
Man,
And I
and
still hear from him every now and then.
oh wow, wow,
Isn't that
wow,
something?
wow. He's like gold to me. He is just gold. Charlie
Mm.
Sewer's gold.
Well,
He's
you
gold.
mentioned the musical influences. People think of gumbo as a food, right? And it is, of course. But we talk about gumbo as the musical mix of New Orleans, right? I mean, it's no
Yes,
better word to use than gumbo,
it's a
which
good
is
one.
something everybody makes a little different. Everybody puts their own something in it, and it's got ingredients from all over the place, and
That's
that's
right.
kind of a metaphor for that music, don't you think?
I agree. I way agree. It's a metaphor for, and it's also that'd be a good. That's a good thing to to realize as a musician that when you go to play, you're playing with the ingredients that are there. And
That's a
every
good
time
point.
if you go play another gig, there's going to be might be the same music, same songs, but there might be some different people, and they got some different ingredients.
Right.
So I that's a good thing for drummers to think, conceptualize gumbo, and you can conceptualize going into a gig and dealing with what ingredients are there. And if you can approach it like that, then you're gonna make the gumbo taste better.
Yeah.
You see?
Uh-huh.
If you really give yourself to the ingredients, then I think, and that's what people do to make gumbo. They have the ingredients and say, okay, this is what I got, so this is going to be the gumbo.
Yeah, could be
And
seafood, could be chicken, could be filet,
and
whatever
what
they
makes it
got.
and what makes it taste good is your love inside your heart when you make it.
That's beautiful. Now we're going to
That's,
jump around because I've heard you use the phrase for practicing. I've heard you tell students this: get out of the drum room and get into the music room.
yes, yes, yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Along the lines of
That's
what we're discussing. What does that mean?
well. That means that okay. When we learn and we're drummers, we have a tendency to hang out in the drum section, of course, and then we have a tendency to hang out with the other drummers. We're hanging out with the drummers all the time, hanging out with our drummer friends. Hey, watch this rhythm. Hey, watch this paradiddle. Hey, blah blah blah. Uh,
Hmm.
but I think it's really healthy for a drummer to hang out with another musician who plays a different instrument, for like a saxophone. Hang out with them, and that way you start learning more about music and what they think, because that's what you're going to be playing with. You're not going to be playing with a bunch of drummers. Well, you might. I mean, as some of us will get calls to just play in drum bands, just drums only, percussion only. Some of us might just get into marching band where there's no other instruments other than drums. But for the majority of us working drummers, we're the only drummer in the group. There's not going to be another drummer. There's going to be a bass player and a guitar player or something like that. It's not going to
Hmm.
be all drummers. So man, you can't. So here, so my idea is to break out of that singular drum attitude and start thinking from a musical attitude. And now we're getting back to the rooms. So when we're studying drums, we're in this room, and there's a bunch of drummers, and we studying. Down at the bottom, there's my beginning, mediocre. Then there's better and good, and then there's great, and then there's phenomenal drummers. And that's at the top of the room, right? And then right above that room is another room where all the musicians hang out. The saxophone players and the guitar players. And the object is to get in that room, right? Now, here's what drummers don't realize. Don't worry about being a great, phenomenal monster drummer. What you want to do is just get good enough to play that and get out of that room and get up in that top room and start hanging out with those cats there, because they don't need a phenomenal monster drummer. What they need is a musical drummer who's going to play music
Hmm.
and not so much drum. So get out of that drum room and start hanging out with your guitar player friends. I suggest saxophone players or players up in that room that have to use air to play their instrument. And then, once you're, in that room with those guys, you start thinking in terms of phrases,
Mm-hmm.
musical linear lines, harmonic chord progressions that tell you when the end of the phrase is coming. So that's what I mean by get drummer room, and then there's the room with the musicians. And you don't have to be great to get out of the drummer room. You just have to get up to that mediocre level, and you can slip out that door and hurry up and get in the top with the musicians.
That's a great way to look at it.
You
You know, I
know?
took a lesson. One of the best lessons I ever had in my life was with the great bass player John Clayton, who I knew through
Yeah.
Jeff Hamilton. And I just brought my drums over and set them up, and he played his bass, and we recorded it and talked about it. And it's exactly what you were talking about. He didn't care what kind of drum stuff I did. He wanted to know if I could make music with him.
Yeah. 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 And
Very
and and,
cool.
and yeah.
Now
And
there is. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
There is something about the New Orleans rhythm, though, that's different. You know, it's called a lilt or a
Hmm.
swing or a, you know, they say the great musicians make their living on the space between the notes.
Hmm.
So a lot of music today is quantized, it's to a grid, it's narrowed down to the locked in at the closest 30-second note. But
Hmm.
that's not what New Orleans rhythm is about, is it?
No, I don't think so. No, 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 no. I think it definitely, like you first said, it had a lilt, and that's because we. I think it's because we don't treat all the notes equally. Uh, 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 very much. Just take four quarter notes. Bop, 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 bop. Bop, 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 ba doo, bop, bop. We're more likely to feel ba ta poo ta poo ta poo ta poo ta poo ta. So we're not exactly equal. There's a dip, a little slight accent maybe on the backbeat, ting tang, ting tang, ting tang, ting tang, ting tang, something like that. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think we think of the beats so equal as doom 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 doom. I don't think that it might
Mm-hmm.
play it that way, but still in all the feeling is going to have an edge to it. Then on top of that simple little accent, which is just the basic backbeat, we impose these sort of a lot of the tunes have built into it, starting off with a basic three clave that we all know, which is 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, so that's kind of in a lot of music. Even when I'm playing in 4/4, sang dang 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 doon bang I'm thinking bang gang 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 jack eat that. Even though the bass might be going boom 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 boom, even that's happening. I'm still in my body, still going pa 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 pa. So I'm constantly, that's what I think makes the lilt that you first started talking about
Mm-hmm.
there,
Mm-hmm.
is the
Mm-hmm.
fact that the inner feeling is not quite straightforward. I think when, and that's one of the things about a New Orleans music too, is the earlier jazz, everybody thinks it went straight to 4/4, boom, 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 boom. But for a long time, man, and still to this day, man, guys will turn around to you, trad guys will say, "No, bro, the whole tune's in two. You play two beat, the whole tune."
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe on the last chorus they might modulate and go to four beats in a measure. But and there's times when you go to 4/4, but I mean, there's more to playing in a two feel than you think, than most people think. And
That's
and that's
interesting.
and I think that's why that 4/4 that I just said a second ago, ting tang, ting tang. I think that's why that's not even. It's because the cats around here used to feeling things and boom tap, boom tap, boom tap. Because it has to do more with a
Boom,
march, right?
boom, boom,
Yeah, yeah,
boom,
yeah,
boom,
yeah, yeah,
ding,
yeah.
boom. Right, right.
Which is closer to marching, yeah, I think.
Hmm. It also leaves more space for the drummer to define those
Yes.
notes than when the bass player's playing dong ding dong dong ding, or even worse, ding dong ding dong 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 doom. You know that's for you, man. That's for the drummer to define those spaces.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I think that's one of the reasons the rhythm has a wavy feel.
Hmm. Hmm. And then, how about the importance of rolls? Well, the snare drum, first of all. We all know it's the heart of the instrument. It sits between our legs. We'd address it right there. But in New Orleans music, that snare drum is very important, isn't it?
Well, it's the second most important thing. Yeah, the bass drum is the most important, and the snare drum is fairly important. But I like to tell drummers this right off the bat because they get too involved with the snare drum and forget about the bass drum. You know, when the bass drum is the most important. That's what the people listen to walk, dance, play music to, and everything. That's going to be the main thing. Not the snare drummer. It's that bass drum. Now, the snare drum requires a little finesse, and there's certain things that are important. But I like to tell drummers before you start getting all fancy with the snare drum, man, you better have your feet double as good as what your hands can do. But so my rule is, or not my rule, but my advice to most drummers is, think of this, and this for the most part is true. When a bunch of guys in a brass band get together and they got some instruments in the room and they're gonna make a brass band, and the best musician in the room will usually be the bass drum player. He'll play bass drum.
Wow.
And a lot of times the least best musician in the room will be the snare drum player.
No kidding.
Yes.
That's the opposite of what you would think, because the snare drum requires more finesse.
Yeah, that's just icing on a cake. It's just on top of the boom, 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 boom.
I got you.
If that's got to be there, that's got to be there. That's got to be there. The snare drummer can play with one hand. He can drink beer with his left hand, smoke cigarettes, and wave at the girls, and he play with one hand. That's what snare drumming's all about, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, yeah, you play the stuff, and I learned how to play it. But I mean, you can almost get away with playing it with one hand in reality. And having a good bruh. The bass drum.
Well, but how about if you're playing a music that's not relying on that bass drum? You play all kinds of music, man. You play bebop, doesn't have that boom, 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 boom.
No.
Boom.
That's right.
And it's still got that New Orleans thing going on in it.
Well, I think, Michael, that for a long time, having a good teacher, having the luck of having people call me to play all kind of gigs, from street beat, brass band gigs to avant-garde, way out the box, beyond bebop, and straight ahead. Last night I played almost a gig that was kind of bebop-ish, very bebop-ish, if anything. Usually I would just put on a different hat, but I've found from playing that snare drum and bass drum stuff for so long, I think in all the decades that I've been playing, I can sort of fuse it together. Now I've found a sort of way, and I got a couple of devices in my mind that kind of let me go in and out of what guys might call straight ahead bebop. And if the guys in the band are right, and if it's a little loose and everybody's willing to go outside the box, I can half time the bebop and make it funk, or I can take the bebop and impose a street beat over it, especially if the bass player goes through more of a two feel, or I can half time it and play snare drum funk like R&B shit stuff.
I hear you, yeah.
Well, what I mean?
One of the things you're known for is your ability to pull all these styles in and switch at a drop of a hat based on what the band is playing. And I know you work all over town, but the band Astral Project has been a primary focus for you for many years, and that band's known for that, right?
Yeah, and I say that band is definitely 90% responsible for me investigating and going out into these different ways to fuse the music, because since we've known each other and we've become close, these guys allow me to take chances, and they know what I'm doing because they know me. I can't do that with anybody. You just can't go on any band and start all of a sudden go from playing bebop to a halftime funk. I can't do it with anybody. They'd get mad. But if it's people that I know and been playing with it, they would expect that, and that might push them in different directions, and they enjoy that. You got to know the players you're playing with, whether they want to be pushed or whether they want to be cradled.
That's a great way to put it. Well, in that
And,
band,
and
everybody has the freedom to go where they want.
more or less, yeah, I would say everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the interplay that makes it so enjoyable
Uh-huh.
to listen
Uh-huh.
to. But let's talk about, I mean, taking in mind what you just said about the snare drum. When you get to the snare drum and you're playing the New Orleans kind of stuff, I've heard you describe it as a little like slushy.
Yes.
Legato and slushy sounding
Uh-huh.
instead of clean
Uh-huh.
rhythmic.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
Okay. I definitely loosen up the drum a little, the snares on the drum a little bit to give it some decay, some rattle, to help it with that bzz, brr, brr. Now, what is that? I'm dragging my hand. I think of the snare drum basically, of course, many increments, but basic increments is the center of the drum. Then you got the middle. Then you got the edge, right? So I'm really moving in and out of that edge and that middle a lot. I come to the center for some hard attacks or some specific clean attacks, but a lot of times I'm out in that middle part of the drum, close to the edge, where it kind of is ambiguous and ringy, and some snares are rattling a little bit, and that gives it a little a little aftermath, So that'll help you go with that vabu bazuba that, and that is basically taking a rhythm and just buzzing the sticks, or letting them drag. And that's also, I'm not perceiving it as 5-stroke rolls or double stroke rolls or nothing like that. I'm thinking as if I had short, medium, and long notes. For in other words, if I have ba 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 and I'm not caring about whether it's 5-stroke. I'm just, but I'm trying to make, and I'm dragging that stick and picking it up at the left. If I want it to be short, I go, just drag it in a circular oval motion, and the stick bounces across, and you can press it harder for a tight, or you can make it loose, but I'm thinking in terms, if I had a horn, and if I had a mouthpiece in my mouth and it had a hose hooked up to the snare drum, and I was blowing air through the snare drum, instead of thinking in terms of 2 beats and 2 strokes and double strokes and all of that, I'm just thinking in terms of ba ba beat da da and just dragging a stick across the drums in order to get that length, or that picking it up real quick to keep the shortness.
Right.
So it's almost, think of a rock. You throw a rock across the water and it goes da 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 da, like that, skips across the water. I'm kind of like using that kind of analogy, that kind of a thing, and I'm very much abandoning the normal things that we learn about how to play the drums with the X amount of strokes and stuff like that. And I'm thinking as if I'm blowing air into the drum,
You keep mentioning blowing air, which is, some instruments like guitars and piano and drums, we don't have to breathe the phrases. We can just breathe independently. So drummers have a tendency naturally to play a shitload of notes, right? And if you
Right.
breathe, you have to impose those musical phrases, don't you?
And you have to impose that word you said earlier that's so important: spaces. You got to take it. You got to make a space to take a breath.
Interesting. What are some of your teaching, like if somebody studied with you, what would that be about? And I know you do teach, and I recommend anybody down New Orleans way to
Well,
check you out.
yeah, when it's an individual, I really it's our first meeting. My first objective is to give him a couple of basic things, with triplets, try to get his feet inside the beat and all of that. But I really try to figure out the individual and how am I going to communicate with it? How should I communicate with him the best? Every student's a little different, But in general, I really try. If they have enough drum fundamentals under their hands and feet, then I say, okay, let's either play the Saints Go Marching In, or let's play Happy Birthday. And they go, wow, how are we gonna do that? I said, play Happy Birthday. Boom, 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 so do that. And more than half of them have never even thought of doing that before. Mm-hmm. I said, I don't want to hear tempo. I don't want to hear beat. I don't want to hear no 5-stroke rolls. I want you to make me think I'm hearing you play Happy Birthday. I know you ain't got no notes, but make me think that I'm hearing Happy Birthday.
Excellent.
So you're going to have to really play with intention, the melodic rhythm, in order to get the message across. So melodic rhythm is a way that I try to start to get drummers out of that drum room, thinking outside the box. Put a mouthpiece on your drums. I want you to play me a solo, and I want there to be spaces. You got to leave me spaces. Some guys will play a solo, and they will not. Once the solo starts, and once the solo ends, there are absolutely no spaces.
Right. Right.
So so that's why I say now that let's play a funk beat, and we're gonna sing with our mouth Happy Birthday. Mm-hmm. 4 phrases. This song is built on 4 phrases, each 2 halves. Each half has 2 phrases. Da 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 da. That's the first phrase. Da 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 da. That's the second phrase. Second half coming up. Da 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 da. Third phrase. That last phrase. Da 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 da. 4 phrases, 2 halves. Each phrase is the same. So don't worry about that. You don't have to count that. That's not complicated to follow. But if you open your mouth and you sing, you'll never get lost. So that first thing, and that's another thing that's really hard to get out of those first students, is to get them to open their mouth. I'm
that's
going, hey, come on, man. We're in my living room, man. I got dogs and nothing but everything's chaos here. So let me hear you get chaotic.
That's
and
beautiful.
now then then from that point, then you say, okay, so we're gonna sing the song and dance, standing up, before we sit down at the drums. And on the second chorus, without losing the beat, you slip into that seat and you play time while you're still going da ba da 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 ba da bop ba boo da gilly bop su ba da da ba da ba ba da jabba. Now you got to improvise the solo. Da ba do ga ka bop ra bop chicken boom da da bop da ba ba bra bop ba da ba da ba da ba da ba. Time so now you got you got to give me 4 choruses. You got to give me a chorus standing up, dancing and singing. Second chorus, you got to be sitting at the drums, singing, playing a beat. The third chorus, you got to improvise based on the melody. And you just make slight variations on a melody. Slight variations on a melody will get you a solo. And the fourth chorus, you go back to playing time, singing with the ending out.
Now you're in the music room, baby.
Now you're in the music room.
That's wonderful, Johnny.
And an assignment would be find an older saxophone player or a trumpet player or somebody who breathes, plays an instrument that requires air. Find him, get him over to your house, no other instruments, and hopefully he's an older guy who knows some bebop standard tunes, like those 32-bar songs that so many songs are based off of. And you and him getting there, and if you're comfortable enough, you say, okay, let's play, but don't play the melody. Just start improvising on the changes, and it's up to me to be able to hear the harmonic rhythm And that's how I learned, man. When I play with a horn, to play with a piano player, you can hear the 2 5s 1, so it's pretty easy to know when you get into the top of a tune or the bridge. Because a piano player he can play, not only can he play vertically or harmonically, but he can play horizontally, melodically. So it's pretty easy to play with a piano player. But with a saxophone player or a horn player, when he plays those chord changes and you're listening for chord changes, he's playing them this way, horizontally. So now you have to learn how to hear chord changes in 2 5 1s and all the things that music is based on. You have to learn how to hear that horizontally or melodically, because a saxophone player can't play a whole chord. He can't play the whole chord at one time. He's got to go ba da 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 la 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 la. He's got to arpeggiate it. He can't play all the notes at one time. So now in addition to hearing chord changes and time and harmonic rhythm in a vertical way, by playing with a horn player and hearing note chords, you hearing those chords in a horizontal way. Now you're training your ear to hear this. You just playing music, man. You go from
Beautiful.
beating on drums to playing music.
Beautiful, Johnny.
You got to get outside your box. Now, what I'm telling you here is just my way of getting out the box. You can invent your own way to get out the box, man.
No, understood. But what you have is significant and profound.
Thank you.
There's a comment here, Chuck Harling. This looks like an internal. I have a cradle gig tonight. Is that an inside story? What does that mean?
Cradle gig?
That's what he said. I thought maybe that had something to do with a lesson you guys had shared, a term or something. Anyway,
I don't know. I mean, he might have to finesse some musician and really make him sound good. Now,
that's probably what that means.
Yeah. That's your job as a drummer. All of the stuff we just talked about here is extra stuff, But with a drummer, you have a duality. You have a real responsibility as an accompanist to really play that drumistic time that is the very fundamental first thing, and then on top of it, maybe you can when things get comfortable, you can start getting out the box a little bit if it's in taste. You don't wear a pink tie to a funeral. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
I hear you. What's the big four?
The big four is the accent on the last beat that comes before the very strongest. So in most cases, the big four here is referred to a 2-bar phrase that is, like we said earlier, oh, bum, 1, 2, 1. Oh, when the saint, boom, boom, march 4, 1, 2, boom, 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 4, 1, boom, boom, 4, 1. 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. Sometimes when I say 4, the next number I say is 2. I don't say 1, because let 4 be going over into 1. A 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. Ba sa ba 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 ba. 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, ba. Ba-dum, bum, bum, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, bum. Ba-dum, bum, bum, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, bum.
Now that's a uniquely New Orleans thing, man. Where did that come from? You think it's the clave?
I think when people are walking and they strutting and they walking and then brass bands are walking along. That 4, they all kind of lean back a little bit, and I think it's the syncopation of the islands in our culture, that accent on 4, because that's very Latino, that's very Spanish or islandish, listen to salsa, boom, 4 and 1, 2 and 4. So it's common and some other musics. But I think here it's just, because of the mixture of the cultures, that accent is syncopation, and I think it's very subtropical. I think it's indigenous to the area. It's before my time. I think that's just I think it's a very African thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
because of the way the cultures mix, the Spanish and black and cultures
It's certainly
and
part of
French
the New
cultures all
Orleans.
mixed.
The New Orleans thing has definitely got the big four all in it.
Absolutely, it was well ingrained into the music before I even got here.
There you go. There you go. So a couple of old records you were on that were very important. Crawfish Fiesta.
Yes.
What can you tell me about that?
Um, I think it's the best record Professor Longhair ever made. Personally, for
Mm-hmm.
many reasons, it's recorded well. The band had been together for a while before we recorded it, and the producer was a guy from Chicago, Bruce. I forget his last name right now, but he's produced a lot of blues records and Alligator Records out of Chicago. And he wanted the band to rehearse, and the band never rehearsed at all. Never once. We had 3 saxophones, piano, bass, drums, conga drums, and guitar, but we never rehearsed. Everything was cool. We made gigs all over the place, but we rehearsed anyway for the sake of the producer, because he was from up north, and he was a little bit more pencil and paper kind of guy, and we said, okay, we'll rehearse. And so we did, and we went in and made the record, and I think it's a great record. Mac Rebenak played guitar on it.
That's Dr. John to most
Yeah,
people.
yeah, yeah. Dr. John, I'm sorry. And
That's right.
and Mac played, and it was Tony Grady, Andy Caslow, Jim Moore, the great Jim Moore, Uganda, Alfred Roberts, and Profess, and David Lee Watson played bass. And it was great, man. I think that record we made it in 2 nighs, and it was fun. It
One of my
was
favorite
great.
records. You can always play that at a party and everybody will respond.
I agree, boy, man. You put that on, my wife will clean the whole house. But
That's great. That's
the,
great. I'll have to try
this,
that.
the sadness about that record
Tell me.
there's very sadness about it. I hate to get dark, but you know, it's still beautiful, but it's the way life goes. Fest was just getting, he finally, got a good manager, man. The last couple of years he's been fixing his house, his cars running. Fest is, getting, getting up a little bit, just getting up there a little bit, life, and we made the record. Gigs were just starting to get better and better. The record hadn't come out yet, but we finished it. And by that time, gigs were getting better, and the band was getting tighter, and the money was getting better because he had a better manager who was way more honest than anybody else. And so we made the record, man, and we were excited. And I remember I was home sleeping, and the phone rang, and somebody from the band called me and said, "Johnny V, guess what?" I said, "What, brother?" He said, "Fess's record just came out today." I said, "Oh, great. I'm going to get a copy." He said, "Yeah, but guess what else?" I said, "What, man?" And he said, "Fess's record won the John C. Handy Blues Award in the United Kingdom. This very prestigious worldly blues award, John Handy Award." And I said, "Wow, man, that's incredible. The record just came out today and it already won the award." He said, "Yeah, man, can you believe it?" I said, "That's phenomenal, man." So, I'm smiling. I hang up the phone and jump back into bed, and I'm laying there, man. I just think, wow, this is great, man. Oh, this is wonderful, man. And, an hour, 2, 3 goes by, and the phone rings again. It's another guy from the band. He says, "Guess what, Johnny?" I said, "Man, I heard the news. The record came out and it got the Handy Award." He says, "Guess what else, Johnny?" I said, No, what?" He says, "Fest died." I said, "Oh, God have mercy."
Yeah.
I said, "What?" And I just kind of said, "Man, I mean, I had a feeling that he
Hmm.
wasn't well about 2 weeks before this because we played a gig at Tips, and Fest usually have a Coke, and he would sit up in the dressing room or on the side, and I always go close to him because he liked to separate me and Dave Watson. So he'd say, "Jawaska, you come over here with me. Let Watson go to the bar." Because he knew if I went with Watson, that we'd be both getting in too much trouble. So he'd like to keep me with him. And then he say, and I say, "Fess, I want a beer." He says, "Okay, get me a Coke." That way he knew I would come back. So I said, "Okay, Fess." So I'll go get a beer and a Coke, and sneak a shot with Dave Watson and run back to Fess, see a Coke. But anyway, the last night of the gig, we're at Tipitina's and we finished playing, and Fess was sitting in the couch upstairs. He was tired. Me and Watson were doing our usual shenanigans, running around, drinking, chasing girls and stuff, and whatever, and foolishness. And I was sitting up there with Fess, and Fess looking at his fingernails, and he said, "Man, when will I ever stop playing bad pianos?" Because they had a funky acoustic piano at Tips, and he would break his nails and stuff on a piano because he was beat and it was broken. The keys weren't even. Anyway, and that night he said to me, he said, "Jaworski, would you go to?" I said, "I'm going to get a beer, Fess. You want a Coke?" And he says, "No, give me a Cuba Libre. Give me a rum and Coke, Cuba Libre." I said, "Really? Okay." I never. The times I've been with him, he never had any alcohol. We've been out for 2 years on a road in a van, close in the same room, sleeping. Never drank. He drank his Coca-Colas. That was it. But that night he asked for a rum and Coke. And I said, "Wow, that's different." And it was basically a week later that, I got that phone call, or a few days. So I knew he wasn't feeling well that night. When he asked for a rum and Coke,
Right. Now,
uh,
wasn't there like a film crew doing a documentary on him as he died? I mean, during that period when he passed?
well, I think there was more than one. Yeah, yeah, there was
Yeah.
more than one. My favorite information, film wise, I recommend is a thing called Fess Up. It's a film by Stephen Palfy and Stevenson Palfy, and produced also by what's his name? Uh, 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 Alan Toussaint. Alan
Oh
Toussaint.
yeah.
It's
Okay.
Stevenson Palfy is the guy who really created the project, and I think that DVD Fess Up is right before he died, and it's a very and Fest comes up with some great stuff, and
I'll
it's
have to see it.
and
Are you?
about
Go ahead.
I'm not in it, but in one section it says Johnny Vidacovich, or it says on drummers.
Hmm.
And the next questions are about drummers and what he thinks about drummers and how, and of course he's not really happy with any drummers. But at the end, if you not at the end of the thing, but at the end of that section, he says, "But Johnny Vidacovich, he knows how to play the music right and all of that." And he gave me some compliments that this is what, and I never saw the film or the DVD till way after he had passed away because Katrina hit and all of that, and it never
Right.
came out. And he gave me some compliments that he never gave me to my face.
Hmm.
He kept me on a short chain. You know, there wasn't no going out the box and singing all kind of crazy stuff with him, boy. It was strictly drumistic. You better hold, because he was a drummer piano player. He was not like Booker. Booker was more like Chopin.
Right.
Fest was more like boom, bop. He's beating the piano like a drummer.
Well, yeah, he used to be known for kicking a hole in the piano,
Yeah, man. And and
breaking
and
it.
and, look, sitting in the van with him, traveling with him, he'd sit next to me. He
Hmm.
said, "Play that, Jaworski. Play that. Can you play that?" He had all this drumistic thing because he used to be a tap dancer. So
Okay.
I mean, he played very drumistic piano. So playing with Professor Longhair, I put on my drum head, bro. I was thinking drum. I was
Now,
thinking like a drummer.
he called you Jaworski?
Yeah, he didn't call me Vidacovich. Even if he was reading an article out of the New York Times, we played the Village Gate, and it said, "Oh, and Professor Longhair," he said, "Read the article, Fess. Read the review, Fess." And Fess, and the band played very well at the Village Gate, and the saxophone player Tony DeGraudy was really good, and Professor Longhair played very well, and la la la, and it had a good beat by drummer Johnny Jaworski, and Andy, one of the saxophone players, goes over to Fess and says, "We in a van, we're like traveling up to Canada.
Right.
Fess, that's Johnny Vidacovich." He said, "Yeah, I know." And he says, Fess, start the whole article over again. And the band at the Village Van played very well, and Professor Longhair was great, and a wonderful drumming by the drummer Johnny Jaworski. Fess,
Said it again?
Vidacovich. Man, he never called me Vidacovich in all the time I know him. It's always Jaworski.
But he loved you.
He loved me, and I know it, and I felt it, and I really got my how you say confirmation when I heard and saw the DVD, the things he said about me.
There you go. There you go.
And he didn't say much about any other drums, I'll tell you that.
It comes out in the wash. We were walking around at PASIC. I was with you a few years back when you were playing PASIC. And after your clinic, you were in the hall, the exhibit hall, and kids were coming up to you for autographs and all, and you had like a coat over your shoulders. And you were walking around and you said, I'll never forget what you said. You said, being a drummer like this, I don't have a lot of the stuff that a lot of people have, like a lot of money in the bank and pension funds and 401s. And you looked around and you said, but I got this.
Did I?
And I thought, fucking A, man. You got that, brother. Respect and admiration of your peers throughout the industry, and it was in very elegant display that day. And you had your moments there that I was really proud of you and happy to see happen.
Wow! Oh, wow! It's now that you say that, man, it makes me think this quote that I heard, and it really had an effect on me a long time ago. And it's probably where I learned to feel that and think like that and be thankful for what I got. Is I read a quote somewhere and the cat said, "Rather than be popular and rich, it's a far greater honor to be notorious among your peers."
There you go.
Yeah, notorious in a positive sense.
Oh, of course, of course. Noteworthy would be a better word, right? Yeah, but you're so well respected. I remember hearing you play in New Orleans at the jazz. What are they calling it now? It's not IAJE, it's JEN, right? Jazz Education Network.
Yeah.
And Ed Soph was in the room, great Ed Soph, and he listens to you and he comes up to me afterwards and he says, "I've been reborn." That's heavy shit, man.
Really? Coming from him,
yeah.
I've been listening to him since I'm 14.
Well, it's that spirit, that creative, undefinable, but never gone, always there, always in the moment. That's so special to all of us who listen to you.
Wow, Ed. Thank you. Yeah, I got.
I don't think I ever passed that one along to you.
That's
anyway.
Great.
Anything else you want to talk about? What are you doing nowadays for gigs? I know you still have your thing at
still got the Maple Leaf on Thursday nights. Yeah, right. And it's like a different trio every week. So it's very open, unrehearsed. A lot of funk beats, but also a lot of space stuff, and it can go in any direction, and I'm very fortunate to have that, because it's really as funky as it is, and it is really, man, it's very open, and the people that go there are really it's not like you have to entertain them. You know,
Right.
they
Right.
want to be challenged. They want you to throw some shit at them that they have to conquer to be part of. And and I really appreciate that about that Thursday night gig, man. I can go in there with different cats, and I don't even pick the guys that I'm gonna play with.
Who
Between my
does that? Does
wife,
Deb does it? Yeah.
but well, my wife is part of it, and between the people at the club, they all decide, they all have the input on who the other two guys in the band will be, and that's a lot. I know a lot of that is going to be based on numbers and sales and all of that,
Yeah,
but
but how fresh can that be, man? That's fresh. That's
yeah.
real. That's in the
So,
moment.
so they
Real.
set it. Yeah, they set it up. They set it up, and on Thursday, I'll turn to Deborah and say, "Hey, Deb, who's on the gig tonight?" Or maybe I'll be on my way to the gig, and I'll say, "Deb, who's on the gig tonight?" Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just wind up and see. Yeah, I love it. I love it, and really gives me the opportunity to do both.
Mhm.
To Sometimes I have to really be drumistic, because to make this guy or one of the guys of the two feel more comfortable, man, I might have to settle down and play a little bit more drumistic and give him what makes him. I can
Mhm.
feel that. That's a thing I want to add, man. Drummers
Please.
have to develop. They have to develop these antennas that can read body language and sense vibes from a dude on a bandstand. What you playing? Is it making him comfortable? Does that guy sound comfortable to you when you're playing behind him? And if you have to figure out the guy, the person, each player, and you have to figure out how to finesse them. Some need to be cradled, some need to be pushed, some need to be accompanied, some need solid time, some need you to kick them around so that they play other puts them on the edge, and they like that.
Right.
Some guys don't. You have to be able to read their body language. So as a drummer, you're kind of usually behind the guys in a way. I like to set up on the side, but when I get, a lot of times I'm behind. So you read the body language from the back. I can read it. See, Tony DeGrati, I've been playing with him so long, I can play with him with the sound off. And I bet you I can accompany him, because I've learned to recognize his breathing, his nostrils, the sides of his mouth, when he bends back, his stomach, and the way he's playing. I can tell whether or not if I need to adjust or do something differently, maybe to make him feel or play better. That's my job as a drummer. You're an accompanist first. Then you can think outside. Then you can think outside the box when you get the opportunity and the comfort allows.
Antenna up always. Yeah.
And yeah, develop that ability to read, the other guys you're playing with, to see how comfortable they are.
Well,
Yeah,
last thing, because you've been very generous with your time. You've been through a lot down there in New Orleans, man. You had Katrina, and then you had a pandemic. And it played hell with the city, with the industry, with all of everybody's ability to make a living. How you doing, brother?
I'm considerably well and lucky, because still, even though I've grown a little older and slightly, maybe sort of grown sort of out of the scene in terms of the young cats will still call me, and I'll still get gigs from the young cats, so that's cool. I mean, I'm really lucky. I'm just a very fortunate, lucky guy. The scene is tough. It's rough, as far as if you think you're going to make a living, it's going to be tough, but you can do it. I'm lucky. I can, I have goods and bad times, but I'm not going to complain. I'm very thankful for that. What I'm really thankful for is, all of the guys that showed me and let me play and allowed me to take chances with music, and I think that made me prepared to take gigs, any kind of gig. And I don't really, I take a gig because I want to, and because I like the guys, and because the opportunity's right and I feel good. I don't take a gig just for the money, but the money's great, of course. But I try to take any gig because I have the ability, and I have been doing it all my life, playing all kinds of different gigs. And it's not a question of liking the music. I stopped doing that 15 years ago. I like this kind of music. Man, just go play the gig. It's all music. You go boom, ching, boom, ching. That's all that's to it. Get basic. And you love the moment. It's not the music, if it's jazz music or if it's Swiss country music, man, just go play the gig and have a good time for that amount of time, and try to join in that collective prayer of music and people, because it's only a couple of hours that you're going to be there. Even if it's a gig you don't like, all you got to do is look at your watch and say, you know what? This ain't so bad. I'm going to be out of here in 2 hours with a pocket full of money. So I'm going to have fun, man. And
Beautiful.
It's not the kind of music. It's your attitude, And I love all kind of music. I wouldn't turn down a gig because I thought I didn't like that kind of music, I would turn down a gig only if I thought I was not capable of doing a good job.
Well, I can't imagine that. Johnny Vidacovich, living legend, still living large down in New Orleans. If you're down there, you got to drop in and see him. He's easy to find. He's working all over the place. And if you can grab a lesson, first of all, you just got a good one here in this interview. But if you can get down there and study with the man himself, you can't go wrong with that. Anything else you want to add, Johnny?
Oh man, I want to thank you so much for helping me out, man. You've done a lot of things for me, and I really, bless your heart for that, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And don't think for 1 second that I don't know what you did for me, Michael. You did a lot for me.
Well,
you did a lot for me.
You know, I love you. A lot of people do, and you deserve everything I could ever do and more. So with that, I'm going to let you go, Johnny, and thank you for another wonderful interview and a lot of drum lesson stuff there for all the great drummers. Thank you to everyone who's watching. I'm going to hit a couple of commercials that I forgot about on the way out, and we'll see you all again next time on Drummer Nation Live. Thanks again, Johnny.
Michael, thank you. I love you.
Me too, brother. Bye-bye.
I absolutely love playing drums, and I couldn't imagine not having that in my life. And I really, if I could help facilitate that and have an impact on your life so that you can play drums, that means the world to me.
Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Bobby A, and today I wanted to tell you about how much I really love the Hudson Music digital app. Okay, now, check it out. It's an app that you can get for your device, and you can purchase books from the Hudson Music digital store and have them stored right on your device. The great thing about it is you always have it with you, and any content that might be video related or music related is right there at your fingertips. It's a wonderful resource.